Welcome to Wheat World, the National Association of Wheat Growers' monthly update on what is happening in the world of wheat. Each month, industry experts give an update on the different topics, issues, and policies impacting wheat farmers in the United States. We have a very special guest joining our podcast this month, Congressman Tracy Mann from Kansas. Coming from one of the biggest wheat-producing states in the U.S., Representative Mann has been very involved in advocating and supporting wheat growers. Most recently, Representative Mann announced a new bill in June, along with Representatives John Garamendi from California, Rick Crawford from Arkansas, and Jimmy Panetta from California. The bill is called the American Farmers Feed the World Act of 2023. Joining us now is Congressman Mann.
Great to be with you this morning. Thanks for having me on.
What can you tell our wheat growers about this new bill you proposed?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about it. So I grew up on a wheat farm in northwestern Kansas. My folks and brother and his wife still farm together and hope to be harvesting wheat. We're a little late in Kansas right now, but hopefully that's going to come here in the next few days. So I introduced, along with a bipartisan group of co-sponsors, the American Farmers Feed the World Act. Basically, it says this. It's not any more money for our food aid programs, but it says as we are spending money, American taxpayer dollars, let's make sure that we're not just sending money. Let's make sure that we are sending commodities overseas as part of Food for Peace and other programs. So this is a technical change to what we've seen happen over the last few years, and I'm really excited about it and hope it moves forward.
So NOG and several other stakeholder organizations came out with our strong support of this bill. But could you elaborate on why these programs are important to food security and why these issues are important to you personally?
Yeah, sure. So, we have responsibility as a nation to look to other parts of the world. It's the morally right. It's also the fiscally responsible thing to do. When we can stop wars before they start, and in some of the hotbed areas around the world, it's the most fiscally responsible thing that we could do. So agriculture has a storied history of being part of this effort. And we want to make sure that we're sending commodities, not just money, overseas as part of our food aid program. So it's incredibly important. And realize, Ryan, when people receive food aid for the United States of America, it comes in bags. And by the way, wheat is the number one commodity used in these programs. So it definitely impacts the wheat industry. But they come in bags, and on the front of it's American flag, and it says a free gift from the American people. And you think about the goodwill that creates in other parts of the world, other corners of the world where we need to improve American sentiment. That's a lot better than just sending money overseas. And so that's really the intent of the bill.
I actually kind of have a follow-up question to that. So speaking about wheat, we know that the U.S. has shipped around 1 million metric tons of U.S. wheat per year in recent years through all of the food aid programs. The reforms in the bill could allow an additional 500 metric tons of wheat to be purchased through Food for Peace, or enough to feed an additional 8 million people without spending any more money. So why was it important to increase the amount of product, in this case wheat, in the program?
Well, I would say it's really a return to the original intent of the program. So I represent a district in eastern, central, and all of western Kansas. Food for Peace started from a Farm Bureau member in northwestern Kansas, a guy named Peter O'Brien, stood up at his Kansas Farm Bureau meeting, wheat farmer, had a bumper crop, and said he would love to figure out how we could get some of his wheat to hungry mouths that need it overseas. That idea then became policy at Kansas Farm Bureau, American Farm Bureau. A couple years later, another Kansas, Dwight Eisenhower signed Food for Peace into law. And so the intent of this program has always been to send American-grown commodities overseas. It's good for the recipients. It's also good for American ag producers as well. And again, it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. So this legislation would increase the amount of wheat that we're sending overseas. And like I said, is really a return to the original intent of what these programs were intended to be.
So for our growers who might not be as familiar with the ins and outs of working in Congress, this bill was proposed as a Farm Bill marker. Can you tell us a little bit more about the prospects for it to be included in the Farm Bill? And then also, could you shed some light on the timing for the House Ag Committee Farm Bill this year?
Sure. So, I serve on the House Ag Committee. My district, by the way, is the number one wheat producing district in the country. So, wheat is something that we care a lot about, and how do we create more markets and more demand. but it's farm bill season right now. So farm bills are 5-year bills. Our current farm bill we're under expires on September 30th. We have been doing a ton of work to get the language right, to make some tweaks, some improvements with efforts to reauthorize the farm bill. We need to have a farm bill that's effective and also that's on time. So that work is underway. The American Farmer Feed the World Act was released as a marker bill, meaning it was released as a standalone bill. We also have proposed adding that language to the farm bill as well. So there's really two ways for it to be implemented into law. One is to include it in the farm bill, or two is for it to go through separately as its own standalone bill. And what that ends up looking like is too early to tell, but that's our overall approach and strategy.
So with this approach and seeing how wonderful this bill is for our growers, what can they be doing to support you and your efforts?
I think the big thing, one, you're doing it. Thank you for having me on and for talking about it to raise the awareness of this legislation. And the biggest thing for listeners is just to contact your member of Congress, your senator from your state, whatever state that is. Let them know that this is something, if you're supportive of it, that you support as a wheat grower. And we're just trying to increase awareness and support as we work to try to garnish the votes to move it through.
NOG actually also has a writing letter campaign that we have been sending out to all of our states so that they can automatically send a letter to their representatives and senators to push this bill through. So we are trying to help in that sense as well, and we will continue.
Well, thank you for doing that. For members of Congress to hear from people, constituents, wheat growers in their district, that they support this is something they want to see happen, is huge. I can talk to members of Congress that serve in the House a lot, but to hear from their own constituents that this is a priority really helps me a lot in the efforts to get this pushed through.
Is there anything else you would like to add, Congressman?
I would just say, these programs matter. And, I've never met a farmer who doesn't have a deep sense of knowing that the crops that they produce help to feed hungry people, both in the United States and around the world. This is the morally right and the fiscally responsible thing to do. And let's just make sure that as we're looking at international food aid, that the amount that should get sent overseas in actual commodities, not just money, that's what we see occur. So thanks for having me on, and really appreciate you all helping to bang the drum as we work to move this forward.
Thank you again, Congressman Mann, for speaking with our wheat growers and letting them know about this very exciting bill. As you heard, growers can show their support for the bill by going to wheatworld.org and